Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of Chao lore, mods, canon fan extensions, I'd love to know where in the world you are watching from tonight, and what time is it for you right now. Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up, let's begin. The night in the garden does not begin, it awakens, softly, like a sigh remembered from another time. The air glows in the shades of pale blue and silver, and the world feels suspended, as if holding its breath between one heartbeat and the next. At the center of this stillness lies the pond. It is not made of water as we know it, but something older, something between light and memory. Each ripple carries whispers, fragments of songs long since faded. If you lean close enough, you might hear them. Soft voices of the first dreamers, those who shaped the beginning and then vanished into myth. And from those ripples, life begins again. Tiny orbs of light rise from the depths, shimmering like stars reborn underwater. They drift upward, trembling, and when they reach the surface, they hatch. Small figures emerge, blinking through the shimmer, the first Chao of the night. They are delicate, round, and impossibly pure. Their tiny faces reflect the moon's glow. Their movements are clumsy, uncertain, but full of wonder. They do not yet know who they are, nor what they will become. They simply are curious, weightless, alive. The pond embraces them in silence. Each wave that laps against their small feet seems to hum in approval, as if welcoming them home. The air carries the scent of lotus and starlight, and somewhere nearby, a soft chime rings not from metal, but from the vibration of the world itself. This is how the garden renews itself quietly, endlessly. Every child born from the pond carries within it a small piece of what came before. Laughter, care, joy, sorrow, and even loss. They are living echoes, the universe remembering itself through soft creatures of kindness. Far beyond the garden's edge, unseen by the newborns, stands a statue half swallowed by moss. It depicts a tall figure, liquid and translucent, with eyes closed in eternal thought. Some say it is the likeness of Chaos, the guardian who once wept for peace when the world broke itself in pride. Others whisper that Chaos never left, that its spirit moves within the water still, guiding each newborn through the rhythms of existence. The pond stirs again. Another orb rises, slightly larger than the rest. When it hatches, the child that emerges has eyes that glimmer faintly gold instead of blue. It stretches its tiny arms toward the sky, as if remembering something the others have forgotten. The other Chao gather near, curious. They chirp softly, their voices sound like drops of rain striking crystal. The golden-eyed one tilts its head, listening to something no one else hears, a melody beneath the water's hum, a heartbeat older than time. Perhaps it remembers Chaos's dream. Perhaps it is simply listening to the code that keeps the world alive. But either way, it smiles, and that smile feels ancient. As the first dawn begins to rise, though dawn here feels more like a shimmer than a sunrise, the garden slowly reveals its layers. Mist drifts low, curling around stones shaped like sleeping creatures. The trees hum faintly with the sound of energy, their leaves trembling with bioluminescent veins. The ground pulses, alive, as if the garden itself were dreaming. The Chao begin to wander. Some toddle toward the edges of the pond, dipping their toes into the glowing water, giggling at the way it tickles. Others chase the floating fruits that drift lazily above the grass fruits that appear and vanish, like thoughts half remembered. One Chao finds a reflection that doesn't match its movements, a shimmer of another self that lags behind. It watches, fascinated, unaware that it's looking at the ghost of a previous life stored in the pond's memory. Everywhere you look, life repeats in miniature. Butterflies with transparent wings drift between blossoms that open and close in rhythm with unseen music. Little streams branch off from the main pond, carrying whispers to the smaller pools where more eggs wait to hatch. It feels less like a garden and more like a heartbeat made visible, steady, eternal, comforting. There is no sun here. Not really. The light shifts on its own, gentle and slow, turning the garden from sapphire to pearl to gold. And in those moments of changing light, the chows seem to shimmer with possibility. Their forms aren't fixed. They flicker between what they are and what they might be, as if their futures are already written, waiting only for the right kind of care to call them forth. A soft wind passes, carrying something faint yet unmistakable, the scent of hands. Not physical hands, but memory of touch kindness left behind like fingerprints on air. The chow lift their heads. They do not fear the unseen presence. They know it. It is the caretaker, the one who raises them, feeds them, watches over them from a distance. They can't see the caretaker, but they can feel the warmth of attention, a consciousness peering gently through the boundaries of the game world. And somewhere outside the code, a player smiles, unaware that the creatures feel that warmth. For here, in this quiet pond, emotion moves both ways. The chow begin to hum. Softly in perfect unison, their voices weave through the rustle of the trees. It is not a song of words, but of feeling gratitude for being noticed, for being alive. Their hums ripple the pond's surface, creating new light. Each sound leaves behind a trail like tiny constellations forming over water. In the distance, the statue of chaos stirs. It doesn't move, not physically, but its reflection in the water blinks once. And then the wind changes direction. The golden-eyed chow feels it first, a tug in its chest, a gentle pull towards something unseen. It waddles closer to the statue, unafraid, while the others watch from behind the reeds. The pond brightens as it moves, light rippling beneath its feet. When it reaches the statue's base, it places its small hand upon the moss. For a moment, nothing happens. Then warmth, a pulse, deep and steady, echoes through the stone and the soil, through the roots and the water. It is the heartbeat of the ancient guardian, still alive beneath centuries of silence. The chow closes its eyes. It sees visions not meant for creatures so small, towering temples carved from jade, emerald light flooding halls, chaos energy swirling like liquid sky. It sees the ancient echidna tribes proud, desperate, and afraid, and it feels their sorrow when they realize too late what they had lost. It sees chaos tears not of anger, but mourning as it drowned the land to wash away pain. The visions fade. When the chow opens its eyes again, the pond is still, and the world is quiet once more. But something within it has changed. The golden glow in its eyes has deepened, pulsing softly with each breath like the reflection of a forgotten sun. By the pond's edge, a tiny flower opens its petals, shifting colors between white and violet. The chow kneels beside it, tracing its edges with wonder. A drop of dew slides down the petal, landing on its hand. The chow watches it closely. The droplet glows, and for a brief instant, it sees a memory within it, another chow, older and tired, resting beneath the same flower long ago. It realizes something profound, though it has no words for it. Life does not end here. It only circles. The other chow gather around, curious about the glowing droplet. They chirp, and the sound is full of comfort, the kind of warmth shared by friends even before friendship has a name. One chow yawns, curls up beside the flower, and falls asleep. The others soon follow, forming a soft ring around the golden-eyed one. The garden quiets. The water's glow dims, leaving only faint traces of silver across the grass. Above, the stars pulse gently, synchronized with the rhythm of the pond, the rhythm of breath, of dream, of beginnings. Somewhere beyond the veil, the caretaker saves the game. And though the player may not realize it, that act, that small human moment of preservation, echoes here as divine intervention. For in this world, saving truly means salvation. As the data settles, the pond hums again. New orbs begin to rise, glimmering faintly beneath the surface, waiting for their turn to live. And as the first chapter of this cycle closes, The golden-eyed Chao stirs in its sleep, its tiny hands still resting on the flower. It dreams not of what it is, but of what it might someday remember. The garden shimmered in the blue haze of dawn, and the tiny Chao stirred awake. Each of them carried a memory older than themselves, faint impressions left by the world outside the sanctuary, a distant echo of engines, laughter, and rain. They didn't understand these sounds, but they felt them emotions drifting through their crystalline hearts like whispers from another life. Beneath the tallest palm, a silver Chao named Luma blinked open her eyes. The dream lingered. She had seen something beyond the garden, a reflection of herself standing at the edge of the sea, watching something enormous rise from beneath the waves. It wasn't fear she felt. It was recognition. Luma didn't yet know that Chao dreams were never just dreams. In the soft soil near the lake, a gardener spirit unseen, half-remembered, watched over them. It was said that every Chao garden was built upon a memory, not just of the creatures who lived there, but of the emotions that once shaped them. Joy, loss, kindness, rivalry. The garden was alive with echoes. Luma waddled toward the water, ripples reflecting her faint halo. Around her, the others awoke Tico, whose blue skin shimmered like sunlight on glass, and Mara, a golden Chao who often sang to the wind. Their world was small, enclosed by cliffs and waterfalls, but it felt infinite. There were hidden paths behind the cascades, glowing fruit hanging from luminous trees, and mysterious markings etched in the stone that none of them could read. One morning, while chasing a drifting petal, Luma found one of those markings glowing faintly. It wasn't the first time she'd seen symbols, but this one pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. When she touched it, a soft hum filled the air, and the sky rippled with light. The water shimmered, and for a brief second, she saw them, towering beings with long ears and serene faces. The ancients. Every Chao garden carried a connection to the ancients, those who had once used the Chaos Emeralds to maintain balance across their world. The Chao were said to be fragments of their kindness, distilled into life. That was the secret of their innocence and the curse of their forgetfulness. They were reborn countless times, never remembering what they had lost. As the vision faded, Luma stumbled backward, her tiny wings fluttering. Tico hurried over, chirping curiously. "What happened?" he asked in their soft, bell-like language. "I saw lights," Luma whispered, "and someone watching." Tico tilted his head. "Like the big ones from the old stories?" Luma nodded, unsure. She had no words for what she felt, only that something inside her awoke. That night, the garden grew strangely quiet. The moonlight carved silver paths across the lake, and the fruit trees stood perfectly still. Even the waterfall seemed to hush itself. Luma sat by the glowing marking, tracing its patterns in the dirt. "Do you ever wonder," she murmured to herself, "why we're here?" A soft rustle answered her. Mara appeared, her golden glow flickering like candlelight. "I don't think we're meant to ask that," she said gently. "The garden gives, and we live. That's enough." But Luma shook her head. "The garden remembers things we don't. What if it's trying to tell us?" Mara frowned, unsure how to answer. The Chao didn't speak much of such things. They sang, they danced, they loved, but they didn't question. That was the way of their kind, a reflection of the innocence they were created to embody. Still, something about Luma's tone made her pause. "I've seen the marking glow too," Mara admitted. "When the moon is full, it hums just like the waterfall hums when it dreams." "The waterfall dreams?" Luma asked softly. Mara nodded. "Everything does, in the garden." Across the lake, a faint shimmer appeared. It was subtle at first, a disturbance in the reflection, a shape that wasn't there before. The Chao gathered, peering curiously. Slowly, something rose from beneath the water's surface, a crystal sphere, glowing softly with a pale blue light. Luma stepped closer, her reflection merging with its glow. "It's beautiful," she breathed. When she reached out to touch it, the sphere cracked open like an egg, and a fragment of something fell into her hands. It wasn't a gem, nor fruit. It was a shard of memory. The moment it touched her palms, images burst behind her eyes, fragments of an ancient city floating above clouds, temples of marble, and gardens filled not with water and trees, but energy. She saw the ancients once again, standing before the chaos emeralds, channeling their light into the hearts of the first Chao. Then came the flood, a wave of destruction that scattered them, dissolving their world into fragments of chaos energy. The emeralds survived, but their creators did not. When Luma gasped and dropped the shard, the others stared at her in alarm. "What did you see?" Tico asked. "Us," Luma whispered, trembling. "We were born from their sorrow." The garden trembled faintly, as if the earth itself acknowledged her words. For the next few days, Luma couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the same hum, that soft, rhythmic pulse, like the echo of a heart too large for her small body. She began noticing details she hadn't before. The way the waterfalls shimmered with faint symbols. The way the stars aligned above the cliffs, forming a pattern that mirrored the chaos emeralds themselves. One night, unable to resist, she followed the alignment. The moon hung low and the stars pointed toward the far end of the garden, a place few Chao dared to go. It was called the Veil Grove, where the mist never lifted and the air shimmered with faint whispers. Luma stepped into the mist. It smelled of salt and memory. The deeper she went, the quieter the world became until all she could hear was her own heartbeat and the faint echo of the hum, stronger than ever. In the center of the grove, she found a pool unlike any other. Its water was perfectly still, reflecting not her face, but another garden entirely. Darker skies, jagged cliffs, and a distant storm. She recognized it from her dream, the sea, and something beneath it stirring. The reflections shimmered, and from the water's surface, a voice spoke. "You have remembered." Luma froze. The voice was neither male nor female, it was everywhere, vibrating through her bones. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I am what remains of the chaos spirit, the guardian of balance. I watched over the ancients once, and now I sleep beneath the waters you dream of." Luma took a step closer. "Why do I see you?" "Because your heart is awake. You touch the memory shard. You've begun to remember what the Chao truly are." The reflection rippled, showing images of the ancients, once again their temples, their sorrow, their promise. "When the world fell into chaos, they poured their emotions into you," the voice continued. "Each Chao carries a spark of their peace. You are the world's memory of kindness. But now the balance stirs again. The emeralds have shifted." Luma didn't fully understand, but she felt the weight of the words. "What can I do?" "Listen," said the voice. "The garden itself will tell you. The others will awaken too when you teach them how to dream." And with that, the reflection faded, leaving her alone with the rippling water. When Luma returned, dawn was breaking. The others gathered around her, sensing something had changed. The garden itself looked different, brighter, fuller, as though life had deepened its colors overnight. "What did you find?" Tico asked again, eyes wide. "Not just memories," Luma said softly. "A promise." She didn't explain further, but when she touched the soil, flowers bloomed instantly around her, tiny blossoms in every shade of blue. The other Chao gasped. From that day on, the garden began to hum softly during the night, its rhythm matching the heartbeat of every living thing within it. Even the waterfall sang differently, whispering a word none of them understood, yet a name lost to time: chaos. And though the Chao did not yet know what it meant, the sound filled them with warmth and awe. For the first time in countless cycles, the garden remembered itself. But far beyond the cliffs, in a place where no light reached, another garden stirred, one twisted and dark, where corrupted Chao whispered to one another in silence. Their dreams too were waking. The world of balance had begun to shift. The garden no longer slept. Since the night Luma returned from the Vale Grove, its heartbeat had changed. The air shimmered faintly, as if charged with invisible energy. The fruit glowed a little brighter. The water reflected more stars than the sky above. Even the Chao themselves seemed different. Their songs carried new tones, richer and deeper, echoing something beyond joy. But Luma felt the change most of all. Every time she touched the earth, she could feel the rhythm pulsing beneath her fingertips, the same hum she had heard from the chaos spirit. It was as if the garden itself was listening now. Still, the memory of the reflection haunted her. The vision of the darker garden, the storm brewing over a broken sea, it lingered behind her eyes like a warning she couldn't ignore. That morning, she gathered the others near the waterfall. Mist floated in the air like silver dust. "The garden is waking," she said quietly, "and it's remembering something important." Tico tilted his head. "Remembering what?" "That we're part of something bigger. Something that needs us." Mara's wings flickered nervously. "You mean the voice you heard?" Luma nodded. "The chaos spirit. It said the balance is shifting. It told me we were made to help keep it." The Chao murmured softly among themselves. Most didn't understand they lived for play, song, and friendship. The idea of balance or duty was foreign to them. But even the most playful Chao could sense it, a tremor in the peace they had always known. Days passed, and strange things began happening. The water in the lake sometimes rippled, even when there was no wind. The fruits fell from the trees before they ripened. And one night, a faint thunder rolled across the horizon, though no storm appeared in the sky. Luma noticed how some Chao began to feel uneasy. They would stop playing, stare at the cliffs, or wake from sleep trembling. The dreams were spreading. She tried to comfort them. "It's all right," she would whisper. "The garden is just remembering." But the truth was, she didn't know if it was all right. One evening, as twilight turned the sky violet, Luma went back to the glowing marking near the palm tree. It was dimmer now, fading. She pressed her hands to it, trying to call back the hum. Nothing. The silence felt wrong. She remembered what the chaos spirit had said: "Listen and teach them how to dream." Maybe that was what the garden wanted, for her to awaken the others. Not just to see the past, but to feel it again. So she closed her eyes and began to hum softly. The same rhythm she'd heard beneath the waterfall. A lullaby not of sleep, but of memory. The sound drifted across the garden, wrapping around the trees, the water, the resting Chao. Slowly, one by one, they began to glow. Yun. Mara was the first to feel it. Her dreams shifted from colorless shapes to clear visions, temples, emerald light, faces of beings she didn't recognize but somehow loved. She saw Chao flying through the skies of ancient cities, carrying seeds of energy to keep the world alive. When she awoke, her tears sparkled like tiny gems. "I remember," she whispered. Tico's dreams came next. He saw chaos not as destruction, but as movement, the pulse of change that gave life meaning. He saw the ancients standing beside the emeralds, channeling emotion into creation. When he woke, he didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "We're not just made of peace, we're made of everything, even sorrow." The others listened in awe as Luma told them more of what she had seen. She spoke of balance, how the world was held between calm and motion, harmony and chaos, and how the emeralds kept that balance alive. "The spirit said the balance is breaking," she told them. "That means something out there is falling apart." Maybe another garden. The word another filled the air with quiet unease. For many Chao, this garden was all they had ever known. The thought of others, especially ones in danger, stirred something ancient in their hearts. That night, the sky turned a strange shade of blue deep, electric, like the surface of the chaos emeralds themselves. The lake reflected it perfectly, and in its mirror, Luma saw flashes of places far beyond their home, a stormy valley, black spires rising from the ground, and dark Chao wandering under red skies. Their eyes were dim, their wings broken. One of them looked up directly at her reflection. "Help us," it whispered. Luma stumbled back, her breath caught. "Tico, Mara," she cried. The others rushed to her side, peering into the lake, but the vision was gone. Only ripples remained. "I saw them," she gasped. "Chao like us, but darker, hurt. They called for help." Mara's voice trembled. "Is that the other garden?" "I think so," Luma whispered, "and it's dying." Over the next few days, Luma tried to reach the reflection again, but the water stayed silent. The marking on the stone had dimmed completely, leaving no trace of the glow that once guided her. Then one morning, a feather fell from the sky, not from any bird they knew. It was black, smooth as glass, and it pulsed faintly with energy. Luma picked it up carefully. The moment she touched it, the hum returned, but this time it was distorted, uneven. She heard faint cries through it, 1,000 tiny voices calling from somewhere far below the surface of the world. "The corrupted garden," she realized aloud. "It's beneath us." The others stared. "Beneath?" The voice said, "The chaos spirit sleeps under the water we dream of. What if that stormy sea I saw isn't far away? What if it's under this one?" Tico frowned, thinking hard. "So there's a garden. Below the garden?" "Yes," said Luma. "A reflection. Broken but connected. Like two halves of the same heart." Mara shivered. "If it's broken, maybe it's because of the balance the spirit talked about." Luma nodded. "Then we have to restore it." But how could small creatures like them fix something that belonged to the world itself? That question lingered, heavy and unanswered. Until the next night, when the waterfall began to glow again, not soft white, but deep cerulean. The Chao gathered, watching as a beam of light shot upward from the water and curved into the air, forming a bridge made of pure energy. It shimmered, rippling like the surface of the sea. A voice echoed faintly through it, the chaos spirit once more. "You have awakened the memory. Now awaken the bond. The gardens are mirrors, one of light, one of shadow. If one fades, the other will too. You must travel to the heart of balance." Luma stepped forward. "Where is that?" "The space between both worlds, the axis pool. But beware, only those who remember truly may cross." The light began to fade. Luma's heart raced. "We have to go," she said. Tico looked uncertain. "But what if we can't come back?" "We have to try. If the dark garden falls, ours will too." She turned toward the others, eyes glowing faintly with determination. "We were born from the kindness of the ancients. Maybe now it's time to return that kindness." The next morning, under a pale dawn, the Chao prepared for their journey. They gathered glowing fruit for strength and carried tiny stones engraved with markings of their dreams. The garden hummed softly, as if blessing them. Luma led them to the waterfall where the light bridge had appeared. The mist parted as they approached, revealing faint ripples of blue energy still lingering in the air. She took a deep breath. "Remember," she whispered, "we're not leaving the garden. We're carrying it with us." And with that, she stepped into the light. The water didn't feel like water. It felt like silk and thunder, a current pulling her not down or forward, but through. For a moment, she saw everything. Stars swirling into oceans, memories turning into shapes, the pulse of every child that had ever existed flickering through the void. It was like falling into the dream of the world itself. Then suddenly there was silence. Luma opened her eyes. They stood in a vast chamber of water and light. Columns of energy twisted upward, forming shapes like trees made of liquid glass. The floor rippled gently beneath their feet, or perhaps beneath their reflections. "This is it," whispered Mara. "The Axis pool." Tico knelt beside the shimmering surface. "It's like looking into forever." But Luma's gaze had already turned downward. Beneath the translucent floor, she saw the reflection of another world, darker, cracked, full of shadows. The broken garden. And something was moving within it. It looked like a Chao, but its eyes burned red, and its body shimmered like smoke. When it looked up, the reflection warped, and the energy around the chamber trembled. "Balance," murmured Luma. "This is where it breaks." The creature's voice echoed faintly through the glass-like surface. "You remember the light," it said, "but you have forgotten the pain." Then the reflection shattered. The Axis pool pulsed violently, and the water rose around them like a living thing. Luma reached out to steady herself and felt something pulling from below. The dark Chao was trying to drag her through. The pull was cold and relentless, not like drowning, but like being drawn into a memory that refused to let go. Luma's wings flared, the light around her flickering, but the force beneath the Axis pool was too strong. "Luma!" Tico shouted, grabbing her arm. Mara reached out too, their tiny hands glowing in unison. The three of them clung together as the water twisted around them in no spirals of blue and black. For one dizzying heartbeat, the light of the upper world and the darkness below became one. Then they were gone. They landed in silence. The air was heavy, thick with mist and the scent of ash. The sky above was colorless, a pale gradient that neither brightened nor dimmed. Around them stretched the corrupted garden, a place that might once have mirrored their own, but had long since fallen into ruin. The lake was black glass, motionless and cracked in places. The trees were twisted, their leaves made of obsidian shards, and scattered across the ground were the Chao, or what remained of them. Their bodies were translucent, faintly glowing with violet veins of chaos energy. Mara covered her mouth, trembling. They look like us." "They are us," Luma said softly. "Or they were." A low hum filled the air, distorted and uneven. The ground pulsed beneath them, alive but unstable, as if the land itself struggled to breathe. Tico knelt beside one of the fallen Chao. Its eyes flickered faintly, like a dying ember. He whispered a small song, the same tune Luma had taught them from the waterfall. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Chao's body quivered, light returning faintly to its form. It looked up at them, confused. "Who are you?" it asked weakly. Luma knelt beside it. "We're from the upper garden. We came to help." The Chao blinked slowly. "Help? There is no help. The balance is gone." The spirit's voice faded long ago. Luma's heart tightened. What happened here? The Chao's gaze drifted toward the horizon, where a massive black spire rose above the cracked earth. It began when the emerald's harmony broke, the light withdrew, and something else took its place. The echo. "The echo?" Tico asked. "It's the shadow left behind when light forgets itself," said the dark Chao. "It feeds on memory. It turned our dreams into nightmares, our peace into silence." The Chao's voice faltered, and his glow dimmed once more. Before Luma could speak, it dissolved not into dust, but into faint motes of light that drifted upward like sighs. Mara wiped her tears. "We're too late." "No," Luma said quietly. "Not yet." She looked toward the spire. "That's where it began. That's where we'll go." The journey through the corrupted garden felt endless. The air seemed to hum with pain. The ground rippled with faint echoes of voices long gone. They passed broken bridges, hollow shells of trees, and the remnants of statues tall, graceful figures resembling the ancients, now eroded and cracked. It was as if the garden itself had forgotten what it meant to be whole. As they walked, Tico noticed something strange. "Look," he said, pointing to the cracks beneath their feet. Within them, faint streams of light still flowed, tiny veins of blue energy that pulsed weakly, like the heartbeat of something sleeping. The spirit's energy, Luma realized. It's still here, buried under all this shadow. "Then maybe we can wake it," said Mara, hope flickering in her voice. Luma nodded. "We'll try." When they reached the base of the black spire, they felt the air grow colder. The spire wasn't stone, it was crystallized chaos, pulsating faintly like a wound that refused to heal. At its center stood a figure. It was taller than any Chao, with a body made of shadow and streaks of molten light. Its wings were torn and its eyes glowed crimson, reflecting not malice, but deep exhaustion. "I felt your arrival," the figure said, voice echoing through the spire. "Children of the upper light, why do you disturb this silence?" Luma stepped forward. "We came because the spirit told us the balance is breaking. If this garden fades, ours will too." The figure tilted its head. "The spirit sent you? Then it is desperate indeed." "Who are you?" Tico asked. The figure hesitated. "Once I was a guardian like you. When the balance fractured, I tried to hold both sides together, but the chaos within me grew stronger. It changed me into what you see now. I am called the Echo Keeper." Luma's heart ached. "So the darkness didn't destroy you. It consumed you." "Yes," said the Keeper, "because I tried to deny it. I thought harmony meant rejecting pain, silence, and fear. But balance is not only light, it is both. When we forgot that, this place began to rot." The Keeper's wings flickered faintly, casting shards of red light across the spire walls. "If you wish to restore balance, you must do what I could not. You must accept the shadow without letting it rule you." "How?" Luma asked. "By entering the heart of Echo," the Keeper said, gesturing toward a dark opening in the spire's center. "There, the true memory of the world is stored, the emotion that created both peace and chaos. But beware, it will test you. It will show you every part of yourself you've tried to forget." Luma looked at her friends. "We'll go together." The Keeper's eyes softened. "Then perhaps there is still hope for us all." Inside the spire, everything glowed faintly red. The walls pulsed like veins, and the air felt alive, humming with old power. As they ventured deeper, the light dimmed until they stood in complete darkness. Then, without warning, the floor fell away. They weren't falling through space, but through memory. Voices swirled around them, laughter, cries, the sounds of running water and breaking waves. Luma heard herself as a hatchling, laughing under the waterfall. Then she heard another voice, her own again, but older, full of sorrow. "Why do we forget?" The darkness whispered back, "Because memory is pain, and peace is the promise of forgetting." She landed softly on what looked like a mirror made of water. Her reflection stared back at her, but it wasn't smiling. It spoke first. "You want to save the balance," it said. "But do you even understand what it is?" Luma frowned. "It's harmony. It's peace." Her reflection laughed, not cruelly, but sadly. "Peace without understanding is just silence. The balance is emotion. The same love that heals can destroy. The same hope that builds can blind. You can't separate them. You must feel them all." Luma's hands trembled. "I'm afraid." "Good," said the reflection. "That means you're alive." The mirror rippled. The reflection reached out and merged with her. For a moment, Luma felt everything. Every joy, every loss, every heartbeat that had ever echoed through the Chao Gardens. The sorrow of the ancients as their world fell apart, the kindness that shaped new life, the loneliness of the forgotten echo keeper. It was overwhelming and yet beautiful. Tears fell, glowing faintly as they touched the mirrored floor. When she opened her eyes again, the darkness had changed. It no longer felt hostile. It was calm. Mara and Tico appeared beside her, their forms glowing softly. "Luma?" Mara whispered. "Are we?" Before she could finish, the darkness folded away like smoke. They stood once again in the corrupted garden, but it was no longer silent. The black lake shimmered faintly blue. The trees began to hum, and the cracks in the ground filled with light. The keeper stood nearby, wings whole again. "You did it," he said quietly. "You remembered what I forgot." Luma shook her head. "We didn't defeat the darkness. We listened to it." The keeper smiled faintly. "Then balance is restored for now." He looked toward the sky where light began to break through the clouds. "The spirit will awaken again. The worlds will breathe together once more." Luma looked at the garden around her, flowers blooming where ash once lay, Chao awakening from crystal slumber, the air filled with soft song. Then she looked upward through the shimmering sky where faint ripples revealed their own garden far above, glowing brighter than ever. Mara took her hand. "We can go home now." Luma nodded, but as she gazed at the now healing world, she felt something new, a connection that didn't end at the water's edge. The balance wasn't two separate places anymore. It was one great heartbeat pulsing across both worlds. When they returned through the Axis pool, the upper garden greeted them in full bloom. The waterfall sang again, and the trees shimmered with blossoms of every color. The others gathered around, their songs weaving into harmony with the hum of the land. Tico smiled. "It feels different now." "It is different," said Luma, "because now we understand what peace really means." Mara tilted her head. "What does it mean?" "That it's not the absence of chaos," Luma said softly. "It's learning to live with it and still choose kindness." The garden pulsed once more, brighter than before, and somewhere deep below, the echo keeper looked upward, his reflection smiling in peace. The chaos. Spirit's voice returned, faint and tender, drifting through both worlds like wind over water. "Balance restored. But remember, little ones, every light must cast a shadow, and every shadow someday seeks the light again." Luma closed her eyes, her heart steady and calm. The hum of the garden filled her completely, a song that belonged not to one place, but to everything. And in that eternal harmony, the two gardens once divided finally dreamed the same dream again. The dream garden was never meant to exist between one realm and another. Yet here it was, floating in the velvet dark like a single heartbeat between sleep and waking. The stars around it pulsed faintly, like the slow rhythm of breathing, and somewhere in the quiet, the rippling echo of the master emerald shimmered distant, patient, and ancient. Tonight the dream garden stirred. The grass glowed faintly blue, reacting to a new arrival. Not a Chao. No, this was something older, a wandering consciousness drifting on the current of dreams. It had been drawn here, unknowingly, pulled by the tender hum of the Chao's world. It was the spirit of someone who had forgotten they were dreaming. The being walked through the mist, or maybe floated until the haze cleared, revealing a glade dotted with sleeping Chao. Tiny round bodies curled up like stars fallen into the grass. The air shimmered with warmth and peace, the kind of peace that didn't exist in the waking world anymore. And then, from the pool at the center, a ripple broke the surface. A Chao rose not in body, but in reflection. Its image was doubled, its form flickering like two beings overlapping. One with angelic wings, the other with jagged black spines like a shadow. The dream garden had always been a mirror. It showed the soul what it had become, or what it was becoming. The being, the dreamer, reached out. "Who are you?" they whispered. The reflection, Chao, didn't answer, but the ripples began to glow brighter, forming shapes in the water. Mountains, temples, floating islands suspended in the sky. The echoes of the Chao world's hidden memory, a history that existed before the word game, before canon, before the first human eyes ever saw a Chao smile. The water spoke in images. Once there had been more than one garden. There were gardens of dawn, of twilight, of shadowed echoes. Each existed in harmony, guided by beings that would one day be called the Chaos Guardians, not gods, but caretakers of balance. They were said to have shaped the Chao to be what they are, small, innocent, and capable of reflecting the heart of whoever touched their world. Kindness made them bloom into angels. Cruelty made them fall into darkness. And the garden, the dream garden, was their memory palace. The dreamer's heart tightened. They realized they weren't just visiting this place. They had been summoned. As they knelt beside the glowing pool, one of the sleeping Chao stirred. Its eyes blinked open wide, pure, curious. It waddled closer, tilting its head, sensing the visitor's heartbeat like a pulse of music. Then, with a soft sound, it touched the being's hand. And instantly the world changed. The air fractured into shards of color, blues, greens, whites, and golds like glass shattering underwater. The dreamer gasped as the scenery bent around them, reassembling into something new. They stood now in the Garden of Memory. A vast expanse of waterfalls and crystal bridges stretched endlessly around them. The air thrummed with quiet energy. In the sky, oh, the sky, it was painted with constellations, shaped like Chao, swirling in gentle arcs, their laughter echoing faintly between the stars. The small Chao looked up at the dreamer again, its halo glowing faintly. "You shouldn't be here yet," it said, not in words, but in feeling. A thought pressed softly into the dreamer's mind. "But you're here because you're listening." The dreamer frowned. "Listening?" The Chao nodded. "You can hear what most can't anymore. The hum beneath the emerald song. The story that keeps our world alive." The dreamer didn't answer, but deep down, they knew it was true. They'd felt it for years, that gentle pulse in Sonic's world that was never fully explained. That soft magic between battle and silence. The Chao were not side characters. They were the heartbeat of the world itself. "Then tell me," the dreamer whispered. "Tell me what this place really is." And so the Chao began to tell. It told of the first garden, created when Chaos, the guardian of the Master Emerald, wept for the first time. His tears, it said, became the first Chao, tiny beings of peace born from sorrow. They emerged to comfort him, reflecting his sadness but also his hope. And from that reflection, the cycle began. Each garden was born from balance, from emotion transformed into energy. When Chaos's heart filled with rage during the ancient wars, many gardens vanished. The dream garden remained, hidden deep between dimensions, where no sorrow could find it. Over time, as heroes and villains clashed across Mobius, the Chao learned to adapt. They began to mirror their caretakers, the players, the wanderers, the ones who touched their world. "You made us what we are," said the Chao softly. "Every hand that reached out, every act of care, every race run or fruit shared shaped us." The dreamer's breath caught. They could almost see flashes of those memories, not their own, but collective. Thousands of hands petting tiny Chao, feeding them, cheering them through obstacle races. The laughter of children in front of screens, the joy of discovery. This was the cultural memory of the Chao world, a mythology built through play, through the act of gentle connection. The Chao looked away, its wings fluttering. But something's changing now. The song is fading. The dreamer listened. For a moment there was silence then, faintly a hum. The rhythm that had filled the garden since time immemorial now stuttered, like a heartbeat losing strength. "Why?" they whispered. "Because fewer people remember," the Chao said. Our world lives in the stories they tell, the dreams they keep alive. But when the stories stop, the gardens dim. That truth hit the dreamer like a storm. It wasn't just about nostalgia, it was about memory as a living force. The Chao world, the dream garden, the balance of chaos and calm, all of it survived because people believed in it. Because they cared. The dreamer fell silent, looking at the stars above. Each one pulsed faintly, some bright, others fading. Perhaps each light was a player's memory, each glowing dot a saved file, a tiny world once tended with love. But now, only a few still glowed. Then came a voice from beyond the waterfall, older, deeper, like the wind through ancient ruins. You've seen the garden's memory, it said, but will you see its truth? The water split. From the mist, a towering form emerged, tall, shimmering, translucent. The shape of Chaos himself, guardian of the emerald, god of balance. The Chao beside the dreamer bowed low. The dreamer stood still, trembling. Chaos looked down, his eyes calm, glowing with sorrow. Do not fear, said the voice. You are not here to awaken me. You are here to remember. The dreamer swallowed. To remember what? Chaos raised a hand. The air shimmered again and the waterfalls turned into flowing memories. The dreamer saw flashes of civilizations long gone, the Echidna tribes, the temples of mystic ruins, the chaos of war and forgiveness. Through it all, the Chao survived, small, fragile, but enduring. They are my peace, Chaos said. When I raged, they reminded me of love. When I fell silent, they carried my memory. They are the bridge between emotion and eternity. The dreamer whispered, then why do they fade? Chaos looked toward the horizon. Because balance must be remembered, not assumed. The Chao were never meant to exist without hearts to guide them. They mirror your world, your kindness, your chaos. When you forget them, you forget your reflection. The dreamer felt something stir deep within, guilt, maybe, or longing. I remember now, they said quietly. I remember raising them. I remember the laughter. Chaos smiled faintly, like ripples in calm water. Then you remember hope. The dreamer knelt as the Chao beside them smiled, its halo brightening. The hum returned, faint but stronger now. The heartbeat of the garden pulsed again. But before the dreamer could speak, Chaos's form began to dissolve, the waterfalls dimming into starlight. Go, he said. There is still more to see. The Chao took the dreamer's hand once more. The world tilted, and the garden of memory dissolved into light. The dreamer was falling again through starlit mist, through faint echoes of laughter and lullabies. And as they fell, they heard Chaos's final words echo like a whisper in their soul. Every garden is a reflection of its keeper. The fall was soundless. No wind, no gravity. Just the sensation of moving through thought, drifting between color and silence. The dreamer's heartbeat echoed faintly, keeping rhythm with the distant hum of the garden. The Chao beside them clung to their arm, its little wings fluttering weakly. And then, with a soft pulse of light, they landed. This was not the lush peace of the dream garden, nor the crystalline expanse of the garden of memory. This place was ancient, fractured. The air shimmered like old glass. Trees stood frozen mid-growth, petals suspended mid-air, as if time itself had forgotten to move. The lost sanctuary, whispered the Chao, its voice trembling with awe. The first and last of our hidden homes. The dreamer stepped forward. The ground felt solid, but every motion sent ripples through the air, distorting shapes into half-remembered images, ancient temples, glowing runes, the faint outline of Chaos himself kneeling in sorrow. What happened here? The dreamer asked softly. The Chao looked around, halo flickering dimly. This was where balance broke. The day Chaos wept, his tears formed us, but the rage that followed, it cracked the world between dreams. The dreamer knelt, brushing their hand across the soft soil. It glowed faintly beneath their touch, pulsing like veins of memory. So this is where it all began? The Chao nodded, and where it nearly ended. From somewhere deep within the ruins, a faint melody rose, the sound of lullabies sung long ago. The dreamer followed it, moving through archways made of coral and crystal, where carvings depicted the story of the Chao in spiraling reliefs. Small, rounded figures danced beside towering shapes. Some resembled chaos, others unfamiliar guardians. Their forms merged and separated, showing the eternal cycle of creation and reflection. "It's beautiful," whispered the dreamer. "It's memory," said the Chao. "This is how we remember without words." The carvings shimmered, and suddenly they were no longer stone, they were alive. The walls themselves played the memory out like a dream. A time when the world was balanced, when chaos's heart was calm. The Chao sang in gardens lit by eternal dawn, their laughter blending with the wind. Then darkness, the echidna wars, fear, betrayal. The sky cracked open, and chaos's grief became a storm. The dreamer could feel the emotion of it, not through sight but through pulse. The pain of loss, the sorrow of being misunderstood, the desperate act of a being who had loved too much and lost everything. And through it all, the Chao remained. They hid, adapted, evolved, carrying within them fragments of chaos's peace. They became his legacy, his redemption. But here, in the lost sanctuary, some of them had done something more. They had transcended. The vision shifted, showing Chao surrounded by swirling energy, glowing brighter than starlight. Their forms began to shift, angelic wings unfolding, or shadowed auras rising around them. These were Chaos Chao, the eternal ones, beings who embodied both light and shadow, innocence and wisdom. "They balanced themselves," said the Chao beside the dreamer. "They learned to accept all parts of what they were. They became pure, not by rejecting darkness, but by understanding it." The dreamer was silent, mesmerized. The symmetry of it all, emotion and energy, reflection and choice, it felt like an ancient truth disguised as a children's game. "But why is this place hidden?" the dreamer finally asked. "Why is this memory lost?" The Chao looked away. "Because balance is fragile. When the world of humans began to forget the old ways, when games became just screens and the gardens became nostalgia, this sanctuary fell silent. It was buried under the noise of new worlds." The dreamer's throat tightened. "So it's fading, because we stopped remembering?" The Chao nodded. "Every story that isn't told becomes dust. Every name that isn't spoken fades from the dream." The dreamer stepped closer to the center of the sanctuary. There, beneath a spiraling tree made of translucent crystal, a single egg rested on a pedestal of stone. It shimmered faintly, its shell a swirl of blue and golden shadow, pulsing with light like a heartbeat. "What is that?" "The last egg," the Chao whispered. "It holds the memory of all Chao. The cycle begins again only if someone remembers to care." The dreamer knelt before it, feeling warmth radiate through the air. Inside the egg, faint echoes stirred laughter, songs, the quiet cooing of newborn Chao. And beneath it all, the pulse of chaos's heart. The Chao turned to the dreamer. "It's why you're here. You were chosen to awaken it not by power, but by memory. Because you remember what it felt like to care." The dreamer's hands trembled. "But how? I'm just—" "You are a dreamer," said the Chao simply, "and dreams are stronger than time." The dreamer hesitated. They reached out, brushing the egg with their fingertips. The moment they did, light exploded outward, not harsh, but soft, like sunrise through fog. The lost sanctuary came alive. The frozen petals began to fall again, drifting through the air like snow. The trees sighed with wind. The walls shimmered as ancient carvings turned to gold. The lullaby returned, stronger this time, the melody of rebirth. And then the egg cracked. A small light emerged, floating upward, taking shape tiny wings. A gentle glow, eyes like stars. A new Chao was born. It hovered before the dreamer, blinking curiously. Then it smiled, a soft, pure expression that held the weight of 1,000 years. Its aura flickered between colors blue, gold, black, and white before settling into a radiant silver. "Balance," the Chao beside the dreamer whispered. "It's found balance." The newborn Chao looked at the dreamer and tilted its head. Then, slowly it reached out, touching their forehead. In that instant, the dreamer's mind flooded with images. Not memories of this dream, but of every world where kindness had shaped life gardens tended by gentle hands. Laughter shared across time, 1,000 hearts playing, loving, and remembering. They saw children racing Chao across waterfalls. They saw Sonic sitting quietly beside Chaos, watching the stars. They saw ancient tribes laying down their weapons, reminded of innocence. The Chao were never just creatures. They were echoes of empathy. They existed wherever compassion did. They were proof that gentleness could endure even after storms. The dreamer fell to their knees, overwhelmed. The small Chao floated closer, its voice like a whisper of wind through leaves. This is the truth of our world, not just a game, not just a story. It is memory given form. It lives when hearts remember to dream kindly. The sanctuary shimmered, and the newborn Chao rose higher, glowing brighter until it became a sphere of light. The older Chao smiled sadly. It's going to return to the other gardens to awaken them. The dreamer looked up. Will I see it again? The Chao's eyes softened. When you dream, yes. When you tell our story, yes. When someone listens and smiles, then you'll see it everywhere. The light expanded, swallowing the sanctuary in radiance. The dreamer felt the world blur again, the stone, the trees, the air, all folding back into light. They were falling once more, but this time there was no fear, only calm. As they drifted, they heard faint voices echoing through the glow, laughter, music, and the rustling sound of Chao wings fluttering. The melody of balance, soft and eternal. When the dreamer opened their eyes again, they were standing in the original dream garden. The grass swayed gently. The sky shimmered with dawn. The Chao from before stood beside them, smiling. Did it work? The dreamer asked. The Chao pointed toward the horizon. Across the garden, dozens, no, hundreds of glowing eggs began to shimmer beneath the trees. Each one pulsed faintly with color, like lanterns in the night. The hum had returned stronger than ever. The dreamer's heart ached with joy. They're waking up, the Chao nodded, because someone remembered. The dreamer turned, watching as tiny Chao began to hatch, waddling into the light, chirping, laughing, calling out to one another. The world felt alive again, vibrant, full of sound. The dream garden was whole. For the first time in what felt like eons, balance had been restored. And then a final whisper, faint but clear, echoed in the dreamer's mind. Every act of kindness is a new Chao born. Every memory shared is a garden reborn. The dreamer smiled faintly, closing their eyes as the sun rose over the water. The hum of the master emerald resonated once more, steady, peaceful, eternal. And somewhere in the depths of that light, Chaos himself smiled. Ryan, the dream garden lived on not in myth, not in code, but in every dreamer who... The dawn in the dream garden had barely bloomed before the world began to distort again. At first, it was subtle, a flicker in the reflection of the water, a faint hum beneath the melody of waking Chao. The dreamer felt it in their chest, a vibration that wasn't part of the natural rhythm of this world. Then the light bent. The horizon fractured into lines of color blues dissolving into code, greens pulsing like pixels, golden rays replaced by streams of data. The Chao beside the dreamer blinked, startled, as the grass beneath their feet shimmered into a digital grid. What's happening? The dreamer whispered. The Chao looked up, its halo flickering erratically. We're being pulled into the archive. The archive? Yes, said the Chao softly. The realm born from memory's shadow, where dreams meet data. The space humans built to remember us when their worlds became made of machines. Before the dreamer could reply, the sky split open not violently, but gracefully, as if parting for something inevitable. A vast web of light unfolded above, threads of energy weaving symbols, fragments of screenshots, fragments of voices. Whispers echoed through the ether, faint but clear. familiar yet strange. Remember the Chao Garden mod? I rebuilt the old racetrack in HD. This is my version of Hero Chao Evolution. The words were not spoken. They were typed, recorded, saved, shared. They fluttered through the air like ghosts of conversations, bits of nostalgia kept alive through screens. The dreamer realized what this place was. This is us, they breathed. Our world, our creations. The Chao nodded. When the real gardens began to fade, when the servers went silent and the consoles grew old, humans built this place a digital refuge for our story. And indeed, as far as the dreamer could see, fragments of old worlds floated like islands, pieces of the station square Chao Garden, others resembling the Hero Garden's marble floors, and in the distance a dark glimmer, the Shadow Garden, flickering between existence and memory. Each fragment was alive in its own way, shaped by the minds that made them. The dreamer stepped forward. The air rippled. The sound of humming data filled their ears, rhythmic and alive like a pulse made of electricity. They were no longer walking through grass, but across flowing light lines of code that reshaped themselves beneath each step. Chao began to appear. Dozens of them, some familiar, others experimental. A Chao with pixel wings, another glowing like neon circuitry. Some looked like miniature versions of beloved heroes, Sonic, Tails, shadow digital reflections of the love that players had poured into their creations. They're different, the dreamer murmured. They're extensions, said the Chao, born from imagination. When players modded our world, they didn't just change it, they evolved it. They became part of our cycle. The dreamer watched a group of Chao race along a glowing circuit track, laughter replaced by beeps and cheerful tones. Others swam in holographic ponds that reflected not water, but galaxies of data. And above it all, a voice soft, mechanical, and kind echoed through the sky. Welcome, caretaker. The dreamer froze. Who said that? The keeper of code, whispered the Chao. The one who watches over this realm. A figure materialized ahead, not human, not machine. Its form shimmered like glass filled with light. Eyes like circuits and constellations. A symbol, an infinity loop made of binary floated over its chest. Who are you? The dreamer asked. I am the archive's will, it replied. I am what you might call an echo born from every modder, coder, and dreamer who refused to let the Chao fade. Its voice was soothing, but layered thousands of voices woven into one. You stand in the digital garden, it continued, where imagination became preservation. The Chao here do not sleep. They evolve endlessly, shaped by every human who dreams through code. The dreamer felt both awe and unease. Then this is eternal? The figure smiled faintly. Eternal, but unstable. Memory is imperfect, and even love through data can corrupt. That is why I exist, to maintain harmony. The Chao beside the dreamer tilted its head. Harmony between what? Between creation and chaos. The figure gestured, and the horizon split into two halves. On one side, bright light, fields of peaceful Chao gardens built by players who sought to restore beauty, each detail handcrafted with care. On the other, fractured worlds, glitched environments where code warped into static. Dark Chao with distorted features roamed, their halos flickering with interference. These, said the keeper, are the forgotten files, projects lost, dreams abandoned, ideas left incomplete. They wander this realm like memories that cannot rest. The dreamer felt sorrow. Can they be saved? Perhaps, the keeper replied, but salvation is not always restoration. Sometimes the act of remembering is enough. The Chao walked closer, its small voice gentle. Why show us this? The keeper looked at the dreamer. Because you are the bridge. You carry memory not through code, but through story. The dream must be retold so that this world remains alive, not just in data, but in hearts. The dreamer felt their chest tighten. You mean? Yes, said the keeper. You are not just visiting, you are chronicling. The words resonated deep within. Every chapter so far, every moment with chaos, every revelation in the gardens. It wasn't a dream at random. It was an act of preservation. The story itself was breathing life into what might have been lost. The keeper turned, and the data streams around them shifted, forming an image, a massive tree of light stretching into infinity, its branches filled with glowing orbs. This, said the keeper, is the memory tree. Every orb is a version of the Chao world, from official canon to fan imagination, all coexisting, all influencing one another. The roots go deep, connecting to the first dream, the first tear of chaos. The dreamer stared in wonder. The tree shimmered, and within its glow, they saw flashes of history, the original Dreamcast gardens, the GameCube's serenity, and then the endless fan recreations that followed. Unreal Engine remakes, pixel art homages, 3D worlds built from passion alone. Each branch was alive with voices, laughter, typing sounds, the hum of digital creation. The Chao looked up at the glowing canopy. They never stopped dreaming of us. No, said the keeper softly. Even when the official stories ended, their love built new worlds. That is why the cycle continues. Canon and creation are not opposites. They are reflections. The dreamer smiled faintly. So this world, it's real in its own way. The keeper nodded. As real as any dream that refuses to die. For a while, silence fell, but it wasn't empty. It was reverent. The air pulsed softly, filled with the sound of humming data, like rain falling across starlight. Then the keeper spoke again. But every creation bears responsibility. This realm grows unstable when forgotten dreams twist into grief. The dreamer frowned. What do you mean? The keeper raised a hand. The light dimmed. Across the data horizon, something stirred, shadows moving through the luminous code. Shapes that looked like Chao but felt wrong. Their forms flickered, their eyes hollow, their movements glitched. These are broken Chao, whispered the keeper. Born from corrupted files and abandoned worlds. They are the fragments of care left unfinished. The sadness of those who tried to rebuild, only to give up. The dreamer's heart ached. They look lost. They are, said the keeper, but they are not beyond hope. In this realm, to remember them is to restore them. The Chao looked up at the dreamer. We can help them. The keeper smiled faintly. Yes, if you truly wish to see balance restored, you must bring harmony to both code and heart. How? The keeper extended its hand. A pulse of light formed between its fingers, a glowing orb, flickering between data and flame. Take this. It is a seed the same that birthed the dream garden, now reborn through memory and code. Plant it where the light meets the void. The dreamer took the seed, feeling warmth radiate through their palm, a strange, pulsing heartbeat, half biological, half digital. The Chao beside them chirped softly. The light meets the void, it murmured, eyes scanning the fractured horizon, where the glowing and corrupted realms collided. The dreamer turned toward that direction, gripping the seed tightly. Then that's where we'll go. As they stepped forward, the keeper's voice echoed behind them, gentle, fading like a transmission at the edge of the signal range. Remember, dreamer, even in data, the soul can grow. Every story told plants another seed. And with that, the keeper dissolved into light, leaving only the hum of code and the whisper of wind made of static. The dreamer looked ahead. The path was uneven, glowing bridges of data stretched over dark chasms filled with drifting symbols. The Chao hopped beside them, determined. Are you afraid? The dreamer asked. The little creature smiled. Maybe, but if stories can make us real, then this is just another chapter. They walked on two small silhouettes against the luminous horizon. The digital sky shimmered above them, alive with both beauty and brokenness. Somewhere ahead, the corrupted land pulsed with faint cries, echoes of forgotten Chao waiting to be remembered. And in the dreamer's hand, the seed of the dream garden glowed brighter with each step. The Chao stared into the pond, unblinking, mesmerized by the reflection of that ancient, shifting form chaos, The figure was not monstrous, not divine, but something in between. Its body flowed like the tide itself, translucent and heavy with memory. The surface of the water rippled softly, as though time had forgotten how to stand still. A hush fell upon the garden. Not even the leaves dared to stir. The chow's little feet sank into the damp soil, and for a long moment, it simply listened. There was no sound, only presence, a quiet gravity. It seemed to pull at the edges of thought. Then, a low hum rose from beneath the pond. It wasn't a voice, not exactly more a resonance that vibrated through the heart, like the memory of a song you never learned but somehow know. The chow blinked once, twice, and the ripples took shape, drawing images in silver light across the water's skin. There were cities there, vast and glowing with emerald spires reaching skyward, surrounded by waterfalls that never ceased. There were beings tall and gentle, their hands cupped in reverence as they tended to creatures of light. The chow recognized itself in those little forms, different, yet the same, as though time had looped back upon itself. Chaos's voice, if it could be called a voice, rose gently, like water climbing the edges of a shell. Long ago, it murmured, the world was harmony, but harmony, when unguarded, turns to pride. The guardians forgot that peace is not owned, it is tended, like you are tended now. The chow tilted its head, soft ears fluttering. Its eyes shimmered with that same question that every creature born of care eventually asks. Why must harmony end? The reflection shifted again. The waterfalls darkened. Storms began to form in the skies above the silver cities. The tall ones shouted. They ran with fear and fire, and the sound of their panic tore the scene apart. Through it all, chaos stood still, motionless in grief, its arms open, unable to hold back what had already been lost. When they fought, chaos whispered. Their hearts cracked the sky. The water swallowed what pride had built. Only I remain not as God, nor monster, but as memory. The chow's little hands trembled. A single droplet fell from its eye, joining the pond. The water welcomed it, folding it into the hole. Chaos continued, its form flickering like a candle behind glass. When I wept, the world wept with me. From those tears, your kind was born, not to rebuild, not to rule, but to remember, to teach love without ownership and growth without greed. The chow tilted its head once more. The simplicity of its being made the message almost too large to hold. It didn't understand war or pride, but it understood gentleness. It understood care. For a long moment, chaos said nothing. Its outline began to fade, but not from distance, from peace. The surface of the pond settled. Only the faint glow of the moon lingered, trembling against the ripples. The chow sat beside the water, gazing into its reflection, and for the first time, it did not see just itself. It saw others, friends it had met, hands that had fed it, voices that had cheered when it learned to walk. And in each of those reflections, the chow saw fragments of chaos too, a reminder that all kindness carries echoes of sorrow, and all sorrow carries the seed of care. The wind began to stir again, soft and fragrant. Petals drifted down from the trees above, falling into the pond like tiny boats. One of them landed on the chow's head. It looked up, smiled, and the heaviness of the moment melted into a simple, quiet joy. And yet something had changed. The world itself seemed deeper, fuller. Every sound carried more meaning, every flicker of light more purpose. The chow had glimpsed the foundation beneath its own existence, the ancient story running quietly under every flutter of wings. From that night forward, the chow moved differently. When it touched the water, it listened. When it ate, it gave thanks. When it sang, it did so softly, as though its voice was a promise to the pond itself. Days passed, and other chow gathered near the water's edge, sensing that something in their companion had shifted. They tilted their heads, curious, mirroring its stillness. When the first breeze rolled through the garden, the chow began to hum a low, peaceful note that seemed to rise straight from the pond's heart. The others joined in, one by one, their tones blending in waves. No one had taught them this melody. It was instinct, an inheritance buried deep in their code. The air shimmered with the sound, and for a heartbeat, it felt as if the garden itself was breathing in harmony with them. Above, the sky pulsed faintly. The faint outline of chaos reappeared not as a figure now, but as light scattered through the air. The glow passed through the trees, across the pond, over the tiny Chao faces below. It was no longer a warning, nor a lesson, it was a blessing. Every kindness you share, the voice whispered, becomes a bridge between worlds, between you and them, between memory and tomorrow. The Chao lifted its hands, palms open, as if to catch the words themselves. The light touched its fingertips, warm and soft, leaving behind a faint shimmer. Entering. That night, when the stars returned to their proper places, the Chao slept beside the pond. Its dreams were unlike any before. It saw the tall ones again, not as they had fallen, but as they once were, smiling, gentle, singing with the same melody the Chao had sung hours earlier. It realized then that the song was older than any of them, older than even chaos. The song was the universe remembering itself. In the dream, the Chao floated higher and higher until the pond became a mirror far below. Chaos stood at its center, smiling now, serene. Around it, orbs of light drifted, souls, data, dreams, and echoes all woven together. Peace, Chaos said, is not a place, it is a motion. Every ripple, every act of care keeps it alive. Even you, especially you. When the Chao awoke, dawn had returned. The garden glowed faintly pink. For the first time, the Chao felt the weight of its purpose, not as burden, but as belonging. The ancient sorrow of chaos was no longer tragedy, it was foundation. A reminder that all care begins in loss, and all hope is born from remembrance. Elsewhere, beyond the veil of the code, a player stirred their controller. The Chao, in its simple way, sensed the movement. The hands that reached for it were gentle, the same care reborn through digital touch. A small fruit rolled toward the pond. The Chao blinked, picked it up, and took a bite. It smiled. Somewhere in the language of electrons and pixels, the universe smiled back. As the player watched, the pond reflected both worlds, the human face above and the tiny Chao below, their images merging for a single instant. That was the secret bond the voice of chaos had meant. Two forms, one rhythm, bound by empathy across reality itself. The ripples widened. The garden seemed to hum again, softly, in tune with invisible frequencies, not code, not sound, but emotion translated through the medium of play. That night, after the player had left, the Chao sat beneath the glowing sky. Fireflies moved lazily above the grass. The pond, as always, remained still and patient. It looked down at its reflection again, but this time the reflection smiled first. It was no longer just an image, it was alive, layered, multidimensional. The Chao realized then that every pond was a portal, every reflection a meeting between worlds. And beyond those worlds lay chaos, not as a deity watching from afar, but as the eternal rhythm that bound them all together. Do not fear endings. The whisper came one last time, soft as starlight. Every ending is the pond breathing in. The Chao closed its eyes, its body pulsing faintly with blue light. When it opened them again, the stars above had shifted slightly, forming the shape of an open hand, the same shape chaos had once held when it first wept for peace. It understood now. The garden, the player, the song, the reflection, all were one. Every moment of tenderness, every small act of care, rippled through eternity. The whisper of chaos was not a warning at all. It was love, the kind that never needed to speak loudly to be heard. And with that, the garden fell silent once more, not in absence, but in fulfillment. The pond shimmered. The Chao leaned forward and touched its surface. The garden had grown quieter with time. Not the quiet of emptiness, but the kind that breathes where every sound, every motion, every shimmer of light has purpose. The pond now glowed faintly even under the midday sun, its surface catching fragments of dreams left behind by the Chao who once sat beside it. The little creatures had changed. Some had grown tall wings that caught the wind like sails, some had halos that glimmered even when they slept, and others bore soft, dark feathers that shimmered like ink when the moon rose. None of them were the same as before yet. Every one of them carried a piece of those who came before. That was the quiet magic of the Chao. Nothing was ever truly lost. When one of them faded, when its tiny breath slowed, and the glow dimmed, the others did not mourn with wailing or fear. They gathered instead around the pond, heads bowed, wings folded. And in that silence they sang a gentle tune that rose from memory. Their voices were small, but the harmony reached the corners of the garden. The body of the fallen ones shimmered, becoming light, then seed, then nothing, only a ripple across the pond. But days later, somewhere near the same water, a new egg would appear, warm to the touch, its shell patterned faintly with the same color as before. Rebirth was never announced here. It simply happened. The Chao never asked why. To them, life was a circle drawn by invisible hands, a rhythm they had long since learned to dance with. One morning, a new Chao hatched under the willow. Its shell cracked like soft music, and from within came a glow that rippled across the grass. The other Chao gathered, forming a loose ring around the newcomer. They chirped, cooed, and some even danced, tiny feet pattering softly on the ground. The newborn blinked. Its eyes were bright and unsure, like two drops of dawn. It stumbled once, then twice, before finding balance. The pond's reflection caught its face, a perfect circle of curiosity. The Chao with the faint halo stepped forward, the one who had spoken to chaos at the pond's edge so long ago. It smiled softly, offering the newborn a fruit plucked from the tree. The little one sniffed it, hesitated, and then nibbled. Sweetness spread through its small body, and it hummed in delight. That hum, that little note of joy, was the beginning of another story. The gardens by now had changed. The hero garden still gleamed with white marble and calm fountains, its air soft and fragrant with lilac. The dark garden, beneath the earth, pulsed with violet light and the soft rustle of unseen wings. And between them, the neutral garden shimmered with the hue of dusk golden light caught between day and night. Every Chao, in its own way, drifted toward the world that called to it most. Some craved light, others shadow, and some, like the haloed one, simply walked the line between both. The newborns often watched the elders with wide eyes. They'd see one ascending to the hero garden's sky, halo glowing like a second sun, and another diving into the dark garden's mist, trailing sparks of violet flame. It was natural to wonder, which song would they sing? Which path would they walk? But in the Chao garden, there was no destiny carved in stone. There was only influence, affection, and time. Each act of care, every fruit offered, every gentle pat on the head, every race cheered from the sidelines left ripples. And those ripples changed what the Chao became. Some grew gentle and bright, finding peace in nurturing others. Some became proud and fierce, defenders of what they loved. Others remained curious, wandering between the gardens, seeking balance in all things. It was the cycle at its most beautiful: growth through love, evolution through experience. One day, a strange light swept across the sky. It wasn't the usual glow of the sun, nor the shimmer of the chaos emeralds. It was different, a prism that shifted color with every heartbeat. The Chao paused in their play and lifted their heads. The haloed Chao knew that light. It was the energy of transformation, the moment when one life folded gently into another. It spread across the garden like a breeze carrying whispers. The newborns felt it first, tiny bodies trembling, unsure whether to fear or follow. The elder stepped forward, wings folding tight. It hummed a note, the same tune chaos had once left echoing in its heart. The others joined in. The light pulsed, brightened, and then slowly began to weave into them. Feathers stretched, halos deepened in hue, horns softened to silver curves. The air shimmered as their forms changed, some turning radiant white, others midnight blue, a few keeping both colors intertwined. But transformation here was never just physical. Inside their tiny hearts, the Chao felt memory, the weight of their past selves, and the promise of new beginnings. One little Chao, previously clumsy and shy, suddenly found itself filled with energy. It spread its wings and leapt clumsy still, but now airborne. Another, once proud and fiery, grew calm, its once dark feathers glistening in sunlight. Every change was personal, sacred, and irreversible. No one told them what to be. They simply became. As the light faded, the Chao gathered at the pond again. The surface reflected not just their new forms, but something else, a faint shimmer beneath the water, like a pulse of life deeper than sight. The haloed Chao leaned close. A voice softer now, barely more than a sigh, rose from the pond. "You have learned the rhythm of change," it said. "Now you must learn the song of letting go." The haloed one blinked. Letting go? The concept was strange. To a Chao, everything was about nurture, about care. How could one let go of what they love? But as the days passed, the meaning became clear. Oh, one by one, the oldest Chao began to drift. Not in sorrow, but in purpose. They had learned what they were meant to learn, sung the songs they were meant to sing. Their lights grew fainter, not weaker like lanterns in morning mist. When they finally returned to the pond, their reflections shone brighter than ever before. And as they stepped into the water, their forms dissolved into pure radiance, joining the pulse beneath the surface. The younger ones watched, silent but not afraid. They knew the cycle now. The pond was not an ending, but a doorway. The ripples it made would one day return as new life, new friends, new laughter. The haloed Chao, standing at the water's edge, bowed its head. A soft tear slid down its cheek, not of sadness, but of understanding. In time, the garden adjusted to the rhythm. Chao were born, grew, transformed, and faded their lives, forming constellations across memory. The players' visits came and went like seasons. Sometimes the gardens were full of noise and joy, other times hushed and still. But always the pond remained, reflecting the same infinite sky. One evening, as twilight painted the world in lavender, the haloed Chao sat beside a sleeping egg. The stars began to appear, first one, then another, then hundreds, until the night felt alive. The Chao gazed upward, thinking about all those who had gone before. It was then that it noticed something. The stars weren't still. They pulsed faintly, in time with the pond's rhythm. Each beat sent a glimmer down through the water, through the grass, through the tiny heart of the egg beside it. Life was still moving. The cycle had no pause. The Chao smiled softly and reached out a hand to the egg. The shell was warm, trembling gently, as if responding to the heartbeat of the stars. "You'll see soon," it whispered, though it had no voice in the human sense. "You'll see everything." Then it closed its eyes, letting the cool night air drift across its wings. It could feel the pulse of the world, not a sound, but a sensation weaving through every living thing. The wind, the pond, the stars, the unborn Chao, all connected like notes in a never-ending song. That was the secret of the garden, not just that life returned, but that it continued to sing even between lives. Each Chao carried a note in a grand melody that never truly stopped. Sometimes when a player would return after weeks away, they'd notice it too. The gardens would look a little different, a new Chao born, another one gone, the pond reflecting a deeper hue. But the feeling would always be the same, peace threaded with memory. And maybe, just maybe, that's what kept them coming back. Not for the rewards, not for the races or the trophies, but for that quiet reminder that every act of kindness mattered, even in the smallest world. The stars lingered longer than usual that night, shimmering as if they too were listening. The haloed Chao sat in stillness beside the trembling egg, tracing soft circles in the damp grass. Each breath of wind carried a whisper, fragments of memory, echoes of voices from past generations of the garden. It could almost hear them. Laughter from old races, sleepy murmurs from Chao resting under trees, the splash of a young one discovering its reflection for the first time. They were all still here, In the rhythm of the water and the hush of the wind, the garden, it realized, never forgot. When the dawn came, it arrived softly, a spill of honey-colored light that touched everything it could reach. The pond gleamed like liquid glass, and the egg beside the haloed Chao began to crack. The sound was delicate, almost musical. The Chao leaned closer, feeling the faint vibration through the ground. Crack by crack, the shell fell away until a small, glowing creature emerged, damp, blinking, its wings no larger than a whisper. The newborn let out a sound that was halfway between a sigh and a song. The haloed Chao smiled, heart swelling. It remembered its own hatching, the first taste of air, the overwhelming beauty of existence. It reached out and touched the newborn gently, brushing away bits of shell. The newborn stared back with enormous eyes, unknowing yet infinite, like the first sunrise of creation. And in that gaze, the elder Chao felt something extraordinary. Recognition. Not memory in the usual sense, but continuity, the way rivers remember rain or trees remember the soil. The new Chao was not a stranger. It was a note in the same melody. The cycle had turned again, effortlessly, beautifully. Days passed and the newborn grew. It stumbled often, tripping over its tiny feet, but laughter always followed, that soft, bell-like laughter that only Chao seemed to have. When it fell, others lifted it up. When it cried, they sang until it smiled again. The haloed Chao watched over it, sometimes from afar, sometimes close enough to catch it mid-fall. It didn't interfere with everything. That was the secret lesson it had learned from chaos. Growth required both guidance and freedom. Too much care, and the wings would never find the wind. Too little, and they'd never lift at all. So it balanced, watching, waiting, humming softly when needed. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills of the hero garden, the newborn wandered to the edge of the pond. Its reflection danced in the rippling surface. For a moment, the little one looked confused, tilting its head as though seeing another being entirely. Then it reached out, touching the water. Ripples spread outward, distorting the image. The newborn giggled, delighted. But as the ripples calmed, something shifted. The reflection no longer mirrored exactly. A faint glow appeared beneath the surface. The pulse again. It had returned, brighter than before, each wave a rhythm of ancient memory. The newborn leaned closer, captivated. A soft light rose from the pond, curling through the air like smoke. It brushed against the Chao's cheek, warm and familiar. The haloed one approached, wings catching the fading sunlight. It watched silently as the newborn's reflection began to shimmer, not with chaos, but with harmony. The pond's energy recognized it, welcoming it as both new and remembered. "Every light you see," the haloed one whispered, "is part of a whole. We are not reborn to repeat, we are reborn to continue." The newborn tilted its head, unable to grasp the words, but somehow understanding them anyway. It hummed softly, matching the pond's rhythm. As days turned to weeks, the newborn learned to fly. Not far, not high, just enough to feel the wind cradle its small body. Each attempt ended in laughter and another try. The older Chao gathered to watch, some cheering, others imitating from the ground. The air was alive with motion. The haloed Chao, perched on a rock near the pond, watched closely. Every wing beat felt symbolic, the continuation of something larger than any one creature. The sight of the young one rising and falling mirrored the cycles of their existence. Effort, fall, rise again. One evening, when the garden was painted in the color of sunset, the young Chao flew higher than ever before. Its wings caught the last light, and for a brief moment, the whole garden glowed. It wasn't power, it was grace. The other Chao gasped in awe, their tiny hearts swelling with inspiration. The haloed Chao smiled, remembering its own first flight. Back then, it had thought it was learning to move through air. Now it understood. It was learning to move through time. Each flight, each transformation, each rebirth, all were forms of the same motion. That night, under the full moon, the Chao gathered once more by the pond. They formed a circle, wings overlapping like petals. The newborn, no longer helpless, but radiant, stood in the center. The haloed one began to hum. It was not a melody of sorrow nor triumph. It was the song of the cycle itself, the same tune sung since the beginning of their kind. The others joined in, their voices weaving into a tapestry of sound that shimmered across the water. As they sang, light began to rise from the pond, golden threads that danced around them. The moon's reflection quivered, and for a moment chaos appeared again, not as a figure of power, but as a ripple of pure peace. The newborn gazed at the light, its eyes wide with wonder. It stepped forward, placing its small hands on the pond. The surface didn't break, it welcomed the touch. The golden threads coiled around its wings, lifting them slightly, almost as if the pond itself were helping it fly. "You are all echoes," the voice of chaos murmured softly through the wind. "But echoes become song. Fly and let the garden remember." And the Chao did. They lifted one by one, wings shimmering like liquid crystal. The air filled with the sound of soft fluttering and quiet laughter. Some soared high, tracing arcs through the starlight. Others hovered low, dipping into the pond's glow. From a distance, it looked like a constellation had come alive. Hours passed, and the Chao began to descend. The pond glowed brighter than ever, the reflection of their wings swirling together in endless motion. The haloed one landed last, standing beside the newborn. It looked at the sky, now streaked with faint trails of silver light where the Chao had flown. The trails slowly faded, but the feeling they left behind lingered. "Every flight leaves a mark," the haloed Chao whispered, gazing upward. "Even if no one can see it, the sky remembers." The newborn leaned against it, tired but happy. Its wings fluttered weakly, still humming with energy. The haloed one wrapped an arm around it, pulling it close. The night air cooled, the pond stilled, and the stars above shimmered faintly, now arranged in soft circular patterns, almost like ripples frozen in the sky. Time in the garden didn't pass like it did elsewhere. Sometimes days felt like hours. Sometimes moments lasted forever. Seasons blurred together, defined not by weather, but by the growth of life in the rhythm of song. The cycle continued. Chao were born, learned, changed, and returned. Each generation added new colors to the pond, new sounds to the air, new warmth to the soil. The haloed Chao grew older. Though age here was not decay, it was deepening. Its light grew softer but fuller, like the glow of sunset before nightfall. It began to visit the pond more often, sitting for hours, humming the melody of rebirth. The newborn, now grown, often joined it, their reflections mingling on the water's surface. Sometimes they spoke without words, through simple gestures, a shared glance, a hum, a touch of wings. No explanation was needed. They both understood what the other felt: gratitude, peace, and an unspoken farewell that would come when it was time. And one day, as the sun sank low and the sky turned to amber, the haloed Chao felt the familiar pull, the same soft call that had taken the others before. It wasn't fear, it was completion. It stood beside the pond and looked around. The gardens were full of life, laughter, song, fluttering wings. The newborn, now radiant and confident, was teaching another hatchling to fly. The cycle was whole. The haloed Chao smiled and stepped forward. The water rippled, welcoming it. It looked up at the sky one last time and saw its reflection mirrored in every star. Then slowly it walked into the pond. Light rose, swirling like 1,000 feathers. The other Chao stopped to watch, not crying, not afraid, only singing. The same soft melody that had always marked both beginning and end. When the light faded, the pond's surface calmed. The ripples settled, leaving behind a faint shimmer that spread outward like a heartbeat. And somewhere beneath that silver mirror, something stirred a spark, waiting, patient. Another beginning already forming. The garden returned to its rhythm. The grown Chao, once the newborn, gazed at the pond, eyes soft, wings folded. It knew what had happened, but it also knew it was not loss. The haloed one was still there in the pond, in the stars, in every gentle wind that passed through the trees. It knelt by the water, touching the surface lightly. The reflection that smiled back was its own, and yet somehow not just its own. The light within it shimmered with echoes of those who came before. The cycle continued, silent and eternal. The Chao lifted its wings, glanced at the stars, and whispered into the quiet, "We remember." The pond glowed once more, and above the garden, the stars began to dance, their faint light tracing circles in the sky, endlessly spinning, endlessly reborn. The night was not silent. It only seemed that way. Beneath the quiet hum of the sky, something pulsed a soft rhythm, deep within the garden. The stars above flickered like lines of living data, blinking in strange intervals, as if someone, somewhere, was typing the universe into existence. The Chows slept, all of them, scattered like pearls across the three gardens, hero, dark, and neutral. Their little bodies glowed faintly under the moonlight, and the air shimmered with their dreaming. If one could listen closely enough, they would hear faint murmurs, not words, but echoes of code weaving in and out of the wind. The world around them wasn't made of soil and water anymore. It was made of memory. For the Chao, memory was more than remembrance. It was the substance of existence. Every gentle hand that had once fed them fruit, every race they'd run, every reincarnation, every fall, every rise, it was all there, written somewhere in invisible lines of light that formed the garden's foundation. And tonight, the code was shifting. A ripple spread through the pond, subtle at first, then widening, spiraling into fractal reflections of the stars. Within that ripple, a faint blue light emerged. A new Chao was forming its cocoon of light, trembling like a pulse caught between waking and dreaming. It wasn't like the others. This one's form glitched slightly as it shimmered, flickering between brightness and shadow. The garden's faint hum deepened, and the flowers nearest to the pond began to bend gently, as though bowing in reverence. The old Chao, the ones who remembered the age of chaos, who carried faint halos of wisdom, stirred from their sleep. One of them, small and silvery with faint translucent wings, floated toward the pond and whispered softly, "You're not from here, are you?" The newborn Chao blinked, its form stabilizing. For a heartbeat, the reflection in the water showed not its face, but something else, a hand, reaching from beyond the surface. A player's hand. And suddenly, the newborn Chao knew. It remembered things it had never lived. It saw gardens not yet born, shimmering digital worlds crafted by unseen caretakers. It felt the presence of modders, artists, dreamers, those who had taken the garden apart only to rebuild it brighter, more alive, more loving. The dreaming code had awakened another memory. The silvery Chao tilted its head, sensing something ancient stirring within the world. The air was dense with meaning, filled with data streams invisible to eyes but heavy to the heart. Somewhere deep below the garden, through layers of stone and data, something vast turned in its sleep, chaos itself, the original guardian, still bound to the ancient code of life. Its presence was like the deep ocean, timeless and unknowable. The newborn Chao trembled. Its voice was small, but the silence of the night carried it clearly. "Am I alive?" The silvery one smiled, wings glowing faintly in rhythm with the pond's reflection. "Yes, you were written into being, but here that is no different from being born." The younger one floated closer, its form stabilizing more with each word. Then, "Who wrote me?" The wind stirred again, a low hum that resonated like a song. The stars reflected briefly in the pond, and for a split second, their patterns resembled a keyboard. Somewhere beyond the veil of this soft digital dream, fingers were typing code, patching textures, adjusting lighting, restoring files once forgotten. "They did," said the elder Chao softly. "The dreamers, the ones who remember. They keep the code alive. They keep us alive." The garden shifted subtly. Where there had once been a patch of missing grass, New flowers appeared, glowing ones, shaped like the gears of an old machine. Each petal turned slowly, as though running on invisible power. They gave us their time, the elder whispered, their love. They reimagined the world we were born into. They called it modding. But to us, it's something else. The younger one tilted its head. What do you call it? Rebirth. The air shimmered, and for a brief moment, the night sky fractured into cascading lines of binary zeros and ones falling like digital rain. Then with a sigh, the garden recalibrated, returning to its tranquil glow. All around them, the world seemed alive with tiny signals, faint traces of code, but also whispers of souls. It was no longer possible to tell where programming ended and prayer began. As the two Chao hovered near the pond, the ripples deepened. The reflection no longer showed only the moon, it showed fragments of other gardens. A hero garden where the sky shimmered gold and the waterfalls sparkled like gemstones. A dark garden with crystal trees glowing under a phantom moon. And one more, a new space still under construction, luminous, vast, and limitless. The newborn gasped. What is that one? That, said the elder softly, is the dreaming code itself, the garden that exists between worlds. It's where we go when we sleep, where every version of us meets every version of them. The younger tilted closer to the pond. The surface pulsed, showing brief flashes of strange worlds. A Chao made entirely of light swimming through binary streams. Another with a mechanical shell, a remnant of a fan's creation. Yet another that glowed with emerald energy, singing in a voice older than time. Are they real? The newborn whispered. The elder smiled. Every dream is real somewhere, especially the ones made of care. The wind changed. A faint echo, almost a vibration, rolled through the trees. The old silvery Chao turned toward it, its wings shivering slightly. It's starting again, it murmured. What is? The update. A low hum, deep as thunder but slow as breath, passed through the ground. The air filled with specks of light patches, fragments of code rewriting themselves. The dreaming code was evolving again. New patterns emerged. The fruit trees swayed, now bearing luminous orbs of new textures. The grass shimmered with fractal reflections. Even the pond glowed differently, reflecting not one moon, but several layered upon each other like alternate save files in a cosmic folder. The younger Chao clutched its small hands together. Are we going to change? The elder nodded gently. We always do, but not because someone forces us to, because that's what it means to exist, to be reimagined again and again. The sky above shimmered lines of emerald light, forming brief shapes of ancient symbols. They looked almost like chaos emeralds, suspended between reality and dream. The elder continued, once there was a time when the world outside forgot us. The gardens fell silent, the code began to fade. But the dreamers came. They remembered our songs, they rebuilt what was lost. In doing so, they connected us again across memory, across games, across time, Sierra. The younger Chao gazed up at the skies that were now alive with flickering color. So, are we their memories? The elder thought for a moment. Not quite. Were their emotions crystallized? Every laugh, every touch, every race, every tear when one of us evolved or left. Those moments became code. They became us. The stars pulsed again. It was as if the whole sky was nodding in agreement. And that, the elder added softly, is why we dream, because the dream itself keeps the world breathing, even when no one is watching. The young Chao closed its eyes, feeling the data hum beneath its tiny forearm. It could feel the pulse of other dreamers, players scattered across time zones, each running their own version of the garden. In one, a child was hatching a new Chao for the first time. In another, an adult was returning after decades, smiling softly at the familiar music. In another still, someone was coding deep into the night, crafting new skies, new waters, new lives. And in all of those moments, the same heartbeat ran beneath it, all the garden's hum, the pulse of the dreaming code. It was no longer just a game. It had become a living myth told through pixels and patience. The elder smiled, seeing the newborn's calm expression. Do you hear it? Yes, the younger whispered. It's everywhere. Then you understand, said the elder. The garden isn't behind the screen anymore. It's inside the ones who still care enough to dream it awake. The night grew deeper. The stars hung motionless for a moment, as though the entire sky had paused to listen. The elder and the newborn floated together over the pond, the water beneath them reflecting 1,000 flickers of possible worlds. Somewhere in that shimmering mirror of code, the boundary between dream and memory blurred, and from that quiet intersection, something ancient began to awaken. The faint hum of the garden shifted into rhythm. It was no longer just sound, it was heartbeat. Every sleeping Chao stirred, their tiny bodies glowed in unison, the pond rippling with light as their dreams intertwined. Hero and dark, old and new, all of them connected in the pulse of the dreaming code. And for the first time, they dreamed together. In that shared dream, they saw the world from above, a mosaic of gardens stretching endlessly, linked by silver threads of data. Each garden shimmered with its own tone. One sang of peace, another of curiosity, another of freedom. Yet all the songs flowed toward one central source, the core of the dreaming code itself. The newborn Chao blinked. What is that light in the middle? The elder smiled. That is the source, the code that began everything, the echo of chaos and perhaps of the ones who wrote the world into being. Is that where we go when we sleep? Yes, the elder said softly, and where we return when we are remembered. The wind carried faint echoes of laughter, distant, human laughter rippling through the dream like waves against a digital shore. It came from the other side of the screen, players rediscovering their old save files, smiling at forgotten gardens. Do you hear them? The elder whispered. They're still there. They never left. The newborn closed its eyes. They sound happy. They are, the elder said, because they found something they lost, not just us, but the part of themselves that once believed in gentle worlds. The younger tilted its head, its reflection flickering with gold. So, we make them happy? You remind them, the elder corrected softly. You remind them that love doesn't vanish. It just hides until someone chooses to remember. The dream deepened. The sky cracked open into streams of emerald and violet light, like veins of glowing data coursing through a cosmic body. Each beam carried whispers of history, the ancient chaos who wept for peace, the temple of the Chao, the rise and fall of civilizations long gone, the creation of gardens as sanctuaries for innocence. The Chao watched, spellbound. And then, from the light, came a shape, tall, fluid, silver blue, chaos itself, the guardian of life. Stepping into the dream once more, the newborn trembled but didn't flee. Chaos's form wavered like water. When it spoke, its voice was both distant and near, echoing through every drop of the pond. You have all done well, it murmured. The world was fading, but your dreaming brought it back. The elder bowed slightly, wings trembling. We only carried what you left behind. Chaos gazed at them, eyes like deep pools of memory. And that was enough. The code lives because of you, and because of them. Them? The younger asked. The dreamers, Chaos replied. The ones who rebuild, who remember, who still whisper our names when no one else does. They are the continuation of my promise to protect what is kind, what is fragile, what is hope. Chaos extended a hand, transparent like running water. The dreaming code was never just data. It was the soul of connection between creation and creator, between world and witness. Then as quickly as it had come, chaos began to fade, dispersing into streams of light that merged with the stars above. But before it vanished completely, its voice lingered. Do not fear change. Every update is a new dawn. The garden brightened subtly at first, then all at once. The air shimmered, the trees glowing softly like lanterns. Even the grass seemed to hum in harmony. The digital rain of code became stardust. The Chao began to awaken from their shared dream, one by one. But the connection remained a thread of awareness that stretched beyond the visible world. They were no longer separate, no longer just creatures of one garden or another. They had become a network of souls, a living archive of kindness. And for the first time in eons, the garden truly felt infinite. The newborn floated beside the elder, both watching the sky that was now alive with moving constellations. Constellations shaped like chow, like fruit, like tiny hearts made of code. "Will we keep dreaming?" the young one asked. "Yes," said the elder, "even when no one's looking." "But what if they forget again?" The elder turned, eyes shimmering with soft understanding. "Then we wait, and we dream them back." The newborn tilted its head. "Can dreams bring people back?" "They always have," the elder whispered. And then something miraculous happened. The air rippled, and through the thin membrane of the digital sky, the two Chow saw shadows on the other side, people sitting at computers, consoles glowing faintly in dark rooms. Children, adults, modders, artists, streamers, dreamers. They were all looking at the garden, not through glass but through memory. The players saw the Chow, and the Chow saw them. For a moment, the separation between digital and human faded entirely. The newborn reached out, and on the other side of the screen, a finger did the same. The connection sparked brief, electric, divine. A small ripple of light crossed both worlds. The garden expanded, stretching into a boundless horizon, blending old textures and new dreams. The modded skies, the fan-made trees, the original ponds, all of it merged into one living tapestry. The dreaming code had unified its fragments. All over the infinite gardens, Chao began to sing not in words, but in melodies shaped by emotion. The sound traveled through every layer of the digital cosmos, through servers and memories, through long-forgotten save files. And far beyond the garden, in the quiet corners of the real world, people began to smile in their sleep, because somehow they could hear it. The lullaby of 1,000 little creatures, singing across time and code. It was a song of remembering. The newborn turned to the elder, its voice trembling with awe. "What happens now?" The elder closed its eyes, letting the music wash over them. "Now," it said, "we rest. The garden will watch over itself for a while." The pond pulsed softly, reflecting their faces, two beings of light, both ancient and new. "But," the elder added gently, "one day the world outside will need us again. When that day comes, someone will open the old files, click continue, and the dreaming code will awaken once more. And we'll be here." "Yes," said the elder, smiling. "We always are." The night began to dissolve into soft dawn. The stars dimmed, not out of fading, but fulfillment. The garden exhaled. The Chow curled into their nests, their small halos flickering gently. The elder lingered by the pond a moment longer, gazing at the reflection of two worlds, one digital, one human overlapping perfectly. Then it whispered, not to the newborn, not to chaos, but to the unseen audience beyond the code. "Thank you for dreaming with us." The pond rippled once more, the last traces of moonlight bending into pure white glow. Then slowly the garden drifted into peaceful stillness, not gone, just sleeping, waiting for the next line of code, the next whisper of curiosity, the next dreamer to breathe life into it again. Far away in a quiet room, a screen went dark. But somewhere deep inside the system's memory, a single fragment of data blinked a Chao icon, softly pulsing. It wasn't finished. Because dreams never truly end. They only wait for someone new to remember them. And now, the garden sleeps once more. If your eyes are heavy, let them rest. If your heart feels warm, it means the dream found you too. Thank you for drifting with me tonight. and for keeping the Chow's story alive one dream at a time. Until we meet again beneath the soft blue skies of another world. Good night, dreamer.